Right now are two women who are hearing some terrible stories of hopelessness in Afghanistan, people trying to get to the airport. The former Afghan ambassador to the U.S., Roya Rahmani, and the global executive director of Equality Now, Yasmeen Hassan. Madam Ambassador, let me start with you. We're just 2 days now from the final withdrawal of U.S. forces. It doesn't look like that's going to change. You've served as the Afghan ambassador to the U.S. for 3 years. Is this how you imagined this day would come?
No one had imagined this. No one had potentially guessed that this would be the way that we were ending this 20 years of struggle and success and progress and everything that we had together. This is a tragic consequence.
So, Yasmeen, 9 days ago, President Biden talked about evacuating American citizens, third country civilians, Afghan allies, and vulnerable Afghans. For those of us who have been monitoring who's getting out, I don't know if vulnerable Afghans are still able to get out. Presumably, a lot of them would be vulnerable Afghans. The most vulnerable are little Afghan girls. What are you hearing? Are Afghan girls able to get out?
No, they are not. People have gotten visas. All those have been arranged. They cannot get, some people cannot get to the airport. I was asked to look for people in the airport who could, facilitate their coming in. That's not happening. Then we are looking at the borders with Pakistan, and it's too unsafe to get them all the way there. So I feel that the vulnerable Afghan women and girls are going to be left behind, and that is something of serious concern to all women's rights groups here.
What do you hear from the ground, from people you know in Afghanistan, about what is going on with women and girls specifically? Because anecdotally, I've heard, people have gotten out and said that there are these, the Taliban fighters are grabbing 14, 13-year-old girls and forcing them into, I don't even want to call it a marriage because it's not a marriage, but that kind of relationship. What are you hearing?
Well, what we are hearing is that the sense of panic is growing exponentially because there is multiple threats that the Afghans are facing, particular Afghan women and Afghan girls. They are the ones that will be losing the most. With the announcement of the new rules and how the Taliban are going to be conducting themselves, there is already the alarms are going off for Afghan women, and they are in the state of panic. I'm hearing more and more Afghan women who are getting spotted, who feel unsafe. They continuously trying to relocate themselves. And then also all those that are not necessarily in the public sphere and are not known, they don't know what their fate and life will be. Talking about schoolgirls, talking about athletes, talking about those who were in a variety of different sectors that were not necessarily, for example, a civil society activist who was known and who is in the list to be evacuated. So they are really concerned about what is the future for them, and they are concerned about, of course, their own survival and possibilities moving forward.
What are you hearing? I mean, a Taliban spokesman said the other day that women should not leave their homes until Taliban fighters are re-educated in how to treat women. There is this idea out there that somehow this Taliban 2.0 will be kinder and more accepting of women. What are you hearing?
Well, that's the PR statements. They have said women will continue to have rights within Islam, and the interpretation of Islam is what is problematic for us, given the history of the Taliban. But I feel that this is a moment where we have to watch and wait a little bit, because there are some news of people feeling very threatened, women being asked to leave their jobs at banks, women not going to school. But we have to wait and see. Now, the truth is there's no other alternative right now. This is what we have. So we have to watch and see, and I feel that the international community really have to press the Taliban on their treatment of women. So number one, schools, they say girls can get education. What kind of education? Is it going to be madrasa education, or is it going to be education as we all know it? If women can go to work, can they go to work in all jobs, or is it only going to be as teachers or as healthcare workers and nothing else? Will women be involved in the rebuilding of Afghanistan? Will they be involved in politics? Will they have participation in the government? These are all things to be seen. right? So the current situation is dire, and I know we have to get as many people who are vulnerable out, but then for the future of Afghanistan, it seems this is what we have now. So we have to make the best of it, and I think the international community owes it to the women of Afghanistan to keep the pressure on and keep the negotiations open.
You talked about the fear that Afghan women have. What about the experiences they've been having since the Taliban has been taking control? Because this didn't just happen, 2 weeks ago. This has been going on for months now, the Taliban taking control. What are you hearing from Jalalabad or Mazar-e Sharif or Barji Matal or Kandahar? What are you hearing? How are women and girls being treated there?
Taliban have been adjusting their treatment towards women depending on the situation on the ground in that particular location. Let me clarify and exemplify that. What if they went and took over a village that was already conservative and susceptible to harsher rules? They went back and they applied the same things that they did in '96. If they took over a province and village that were more into education, they demanded that their girls should go to school, then they showed more leniency. But now it's a different story. Now they have the whole country. Now they are fully in control. And we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. We would be able to witness what is going to happen moving forward, really after this month, starting. But then the problem is something different. If we are abandoning Afghanistan, if there is no access, if the airport is not going to function, how are we going to even know what is going to happen? Right now, as Yasmeen was referring to, there is a lot of PR campaign going on for the Taliban 2.0, but is it really Taliban 2.0?
Right, that's the question.
Yeah.
Yasmeen, you're originally from Pakistan, and you think that Pakistan has an incredibly important role to play when it comes to encouraging the Taliban to accept a 21st century vision of the rights of women and girls.
Right, absolutely. I think Pakistan has played a role in the past and is continuing to play a role, and I would like that role to be much more productive going forward, including on protection of human rights and women's rights in general. So I think Pakistan, if they have the ear of the Taliban and they must be part of this Taliban 2.0, then I would say pushing for women's rights and women's equality. There are studies now showing that the level of conflict in any society is directly related to the level of gender equality. And I think for us to be in the 21st century, that's the way forward. And I think I would call on the government of Pakistan to really influence, and not women's rights as a Western agenda. I'm also a member of Musawa, which is a global movement for equality within Sharia. It's Muslim women-led. And we would call on the government of Pakistan and other Muslim states to take a lead now on educating and working with the Taliban on Muslims' rights and equality within Islamic law.
An interpretation of the Quran that is not the interpretation that the Taliban or the Saudis.
Yes.
Have.
Those are gender apartheid states, right?
Yasmeen, Madam Ambassador, thanks so much for being here.